Hey everybody, welcome back to another build. Today we'll be building something from Stranger Things. And I decided to re-record this video. Last time I forgot to hit the record button on my microphone. And lucky for us, I still have not finished Stranger Things. I suppose I could have caught up with the series while building the set. However, I ended up watching The Office. But I'm still confident that this is a straightforward story. In this build, we're going to see a lot of interesting characters, a lot of 80s references, and some mind-bending mechanics. You know, tackling a build where I'm not familiar with the series does make me want to watch it sometime soon. Especially since now I know that the most underrated Ghostbuster, Egon Spangler, makes an appearance. Starting off with the foundation of the house right away, you start to see these mechanics show up immediately, which made the build very interesting, even though it was not aesthetically pleasing. Which seems pretty on par for the foundation of a house. I don't remember anybody ever saying, "Hey, wow, the foundation of your house looks amazing." After I put on these steps, it was cool to see this swinging mechanism show up. It really made me wonder exactly how this is going to work going forward. Which was definitely the theme of this build. The mechanics just keep showing up one after another. The next platform kind of felt like a little maze, but it did slot in very nicely. I don't build a lot of couches out of Lego, but when I do, they're usually upside down. Which in this case is perfectly fitting, but we'll need to fix that. Now we need to finish the rest of the living room by adding this coffee table, along with a newspaper to put on top of it. I did say that we would be adding a lot of elements from the 80s, and reading a newspaper was pretty much something everyone did every morning. The only information that we had was whatever was brought to us on our driveway. We also used something called a rotary phone. It's kind of like what we have now, except there weren't any apps or email or internet or text messaging or watching any videos or really anything else. It's amazing we've survived as a species. And as we put the finishing touches on this segment of the first floor, we start to see kind of what we're going for in terms of look and feel. Adding these pillars starts to elevate the visual design just a bit. And it is a bit surprising to see this awning area split off, but there's a very important reason for that. Because we're not building just any house, this is a house from Stranger Things which needs to transform into the Upside Down. And I've got to say, that has to be one of the most satisfying mechanisms that I've built personally in any LEGO set. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never built anything that uses trees as a handle. And I know that sounds weird, but that's exactly what we're putting together here. And it might not look like much, but this is the backbone of this entire model. Speaking of backbone, I don't know if this character has one. And I'm not talking about his personality. I don't know if this thing has any bones. And I'm no doctor, but this guy definitely has something. Continuing onward, we're going to have another kind of like turny mechanical piece. But in addition, we have more visuals from the upside down, which gives it that eerie feeling. And we're going to complement it with some wallpaper patterns. That wouldn't be my choice if I were the interior designer. But then again, I also wasn't born 100 years ago, which I'm kind of glad about because then I probably wouldn't be doing a video like this. Now we'll be working on the other side of the first floor, and you'll see a lot more boarded windows, which adds to the haunted house sort of effect. And to be honest, I don't even know if this is a haunted house to begin with. It could be condemned or it could be abandoned. Either way, it has a haunted house vibe to it. So we're going to roll with that assumption and also assume that every haunted house needs a dining room. Evil entities do need something to throw around, and antique dishes are perfect. Fittingly, with bag 11, it's time to build the character 11. And I've got to say, coming from season 1, Bobby Miller Gordon looks quite different. The interior design continues to be more on the strange side. And in this case, it looks like we have some sort of portal behind a picture. This room also appears to have some mysterious trinkets included. And even if you haven't seen Stranger Things, we can tell that there's some significance to this area. When you're a professional LEGO builder, sometimes you run into a very specific issue, especially if you have arachnophobia, which luckily I have a very strong case of it. Putting on this sticker wasn't too bad, but I think it gave me a warning of what's to come. And sure enough, just a handful of steps later, I had to face my fear. And it definitely makes me contemplate what I do for a living. After looking for a new job, I came back to build the rest of the rooftop. And I'm glad that I did because it's coming together fairly well. The colors, angles, and architecture look pretty excellent. Now, I was under the assumption that this character was significantly important and had a lot of powers, given that it's Stranger Things. It turns out she's a background character and does nothing. I was supremely disappointed. But that's okay, and I decided to carry on to build this very tiny room. And with these large stickers, I took my time to make sure we didn't have any bubbles, especially since we have stickers on both sides. I think it's the least that I can do when it comes to an evil force. You definitely don't want to ruffle any feathers, or whatever their meat skin is called. Assembling this room was very interesting. There were a lot of different elements that I wasn't quite familiar with. But with the next part, I got very confused. I started wondering if Stranger Things was collaborating with another franchise, like The Matrix. But then I realized that that doesn't make any sense. It's just like this build, if you've only seen one season. At least I can enjoy the mechanics. If you've never built a LEGO attic before, they're just like they are in real life. They're very cramped, very dark, and have a lot of things that you forgot were up there. And even though the rest of the roof design felt familiar, it was nice to see the introduction of additional mechanics that we'll see come into play later on. It still kept me wondering, where are we headed next? I finally recognized the character, and that felt good. And it definitely boosted my confidence from only seeing one season to becoming an expert. Which is perfect timing, because now we have a lot of mechanics coming into play here in the rooftop. We have a nice balance of angled design to hide all of the moving pieces. And this part of the build was very meticulous and kind of fragile. I had to pay close attention that I didn't break anything. If you've seen my videos before, you know that I have a bad habit of breaking at least something. Thankfully, this is Stranger Things and not breaking badly. Putting together this roof contraption was definitely one of my favorite parts of the experience. And there's a certain level of gratification that you get when it all comes together. And it's at this point I had to be extra careful and pay close attention to what I was doing. All of our patience up to this point is definitely paying off. But before we can say it's complete, we still have a lot of finishing touches to take care of. And in the next part, we're going to connect every single mechanism. But before we do that, and while I build the minifigures, I'd like to tell you a story about this house and thank my Patreon members for allowing builds like this to happen. The house in real life used to be a bed and breakfast and had a reputation of being creepy. It was built in the late 1800s and the owners were beginning to renovate it, and they caught them just in time to maintain that spooky look. And everything seemed to work out. It is definitely much better than any of the Airbnbs that I've stayed in. If I built one of those, I would have to charge you a $200 cleaning fee. And here's the moment that I've been anticipating for many, many hours. It's time for us to connect the mechanisms that are going to allow this house to transform into the Upside Down. And I know that the show is all about mystery, but really all they needed to do was find these mechanisms. It would have saved them a lot of time. Our tree handles also need to be completed because they looked pretty poor before. And not that this is that much better, but it's better than nothing. As I was building this grandfather clock, I thought maybe it was just a fixture in the house. It turns out that if you saw or heard this clock in the series, you were in pretty big trouble. So it might be a good idea for us to put this away. Next up, it was time to build a BMW. It signaled wealth and status for one of the characters, but over time, he became more humble and protective. So not only did his character evolve, but his car was ideal for hauling a group of kids into danger every season. You also wouldn't think that you would see a van with such bright colors in such a dark series. But this vehicle was also very important to the story. With so much chaos going on, it was a safe place to regroup. And it was quite the opposite vibe of the Upside Down storyline. Kind of a way to take a breather from all of the tension. And it's very fitting to have this at the end of the build. Because after building for 13 hours, I could use a break. And it was time to assemble the group together after a long journey through the Upside Down that had a few unexpected twists. It was time for me to decide that the build was indeed perfect.